Thanks for tuning in to the Animal Control Report podcast, where we help debunk the dog catcher stereotype. A lot of times people think it's the dog catcher when they hear about animal control officers. But here on the Animal Control Report, we change that by taking you inside the day-to-day operations of animal control officers. Not only will you hear stories of animal control officers, but you'll hear from industry experts as well. We are also part of the Keep It Humane podcast network. We have some amazing partners there, so check them out at keepithumane.com/podcast network. You can listen to all the animal control and animal welfare related podcasts there. And let's continue to help people help animals. Welcome. Wait. I actually got you one time doing that, like a little millisecond. On the road again. Welcome to the Animal Control Report podcast with your hosts,
Ashlee Bishop
and Texas Bishop.
It's the Animal Control. I don't even know what this is anymore, but it's Daniel Ettinger with the Animal Control Report with the Bishops. And I'm in Missouri, not Wisconsin.
You are in Missouri.
Not. I'm on the road again. I can't wait to get on the road again. People already probably turned this thing off.
Nah.
Check out our website, keepithumane.com, where you can get those fun, which I don't have an example of with me because I got on the airplane, the self-defense catch pull keychains. Can't take those on an airplane, people. Can't take those on an airplane. Also, check out our sponsors, livetrap.com. You know, we just had a dog push out of a box trap because one of the O-rings that goes down on the doors. If we would have one of those really cool Gravity Pro Series door traps that just shut and close, that probably wouldn't have happened. But, you know, our traps are a little older, so it wasn't there. The dog just, I'm out of here.
Well, there you go. You
So
need to talk to Kyle.
Go to livetrap.com. Use discount code Keep It Humane. You get 10% off that fancy order of yours. So do that as soon as possible. I got some stuff for y'all.
You have stuff? Is it contagious stuff?
Before I give you that stuff, I just want people to know.
Oh.
This is going to be part 2 of Hoarding Reimagined with Luanne Strickland. If you didn't listen to episode 1 of this, that is episode 225. This is episode 231. So this is Hoarding part 2, and we're going to get into that. It's probably going to be a 3, maybe even 4-part series. So hopefully you like hoarding your episodes.
Oh, but
that was
bad dad joke.
I was waiting.
Dad joke.
So I don't know if y'all get this, but first and foremost, I want to shout out all of our listeners. I really do, and I don't think we do that enough. So shout out our listeners. And what's become kind of clear to me, and I kind of didn't realize it until recently, is I actually hear a lot from our listeners. And I was having a conversation just moments ago with one of our nameless listeners. And I'm going to do that for anonymity. Isn't that the word? I think I.
Oh my God, Dan got it right.
He did it.
Oh my goodness.
Mark that one on the calendar.
So they sent me a post, and I got to get on my trusty little cell phone here because I don't want to misguide anyone with this information. But there was something written, and the title of it is Coming to Terms with the Legacies of the Pound Model in Animal Sheltering in the United States. And I was like, look, I do not have the bandwidth to read that. If anybody wants to read that, they can go to mdpi.com. mdpi.com. You can probably just search that too. The title again is Coming to Terms with the Legacies of the Pound Model in Animal Shelter in the United States. And you know, I'm a historian when it comes to the pound. I like to understand where all that came from and, you know, how it was invented for mainly disease control, etc. Though there was adoptions through those organizations way back in the 1800s. It just seems like from our listeners, and more than one, but that there's this attachment to proving the no-kill industry wrong. And I've been outspoken on those terms, no-kill and save them all.
What?
I've been outspoken on the...
Have you? Sorry, Dan.
No, it's fair. But I've actually kind of, not that I've changed from the aspects of thinking that terminology isn't the right fit, but I've kind of pulled back a little bit in some aspects. I just don't know how we can coexist if we're unwilling to have conversations and hear each other out. It's almost like this. I look at it, just hear me out here.
That's all they can do because it's a podcast.
They can see me though, too. Have any of you ever been part of a team or even like a band, orchestra, something in that nature? It feels like we currently are a team of individuals. We're not a team. There's no unity in animal welfare. There's not. We have people on one side that really appreciate that no-kill movement and want to continue to push that forward. And then there's people on the other side that are like, wait a second, this is not what our industry needs. It's actually there's a word for this. Separating. There's another word that I was going to use. It causes watching. Hold on. If y'all ain't watching on YouTube or Spotify, Bishop's face over here is not in regards to what I'm saying.
No, it isn't.
Her kid is probably chewing her in her ear right now. And she's on mute, but her face is hilarious. So go to YouTube and watch that. Quick pause from the story that I'm trying to tell you.
Sorry. I just got asked if they could have dessert. And I said, your father is out there. Go ask him. I'm
Fair.
busy.
But back to my point is I want to find a way that there can be unity, because we all know no kill 2025 is not a thing. It's not going to happen. And so as they start to rebrand, if they haven't already had those conversations internally, why can't it be like spay and neuter 2030? Like everything is spay and neutered by 2030. Like that is the goal we should all be working for as a team with unity. And so my point of like bringing all this up is I'm tired of the against perspective of it all. How do we figure out ways to work together? Because we're not going to get to where we need to go if we're continuing. We're not going to win games as a team if we're going to continue to be isolated as individuals trying to help the profession.
That's what I've been saying is we've got so many national organizations who have they may have different views, but we still can work together in some way. And every person, every organization has their way of thinking. And if we didn't, we wouldn't have any diversity and we wouldn't have any ability to move forward. So we need every organization to potentially do something a little different, but that doesn't mean we can't work together for the common goal. And I would challenge that instead of, spay neuter 2030, I would say that it should be more of a veterinary care for all 2030.
Access to care, veterinary
Yeah,
care.
there we go.
Are you getting asked again? Look at her. Hey, you have to go to YouTube, people. This is classic. I can't make up these facial expressions. You have to see this. If you don't have kids and you don't want kids, watch this. If you want kids but don't have kids, also watch this, because this is hilarious right now. I'm keeping this in. We're not editing that out at all. I have
Welcome
a new
to
slogan.
Sunday nights.
My new slogan is spay them all instead of save them all. There you go. Okay.
Yeah, I had an interesting interaction on Friday before I left. By the way, Friday was awful at work. It was just awful. It was an awful day, a lot of intakes, a lot of really sad intakes where we had to make tough decisions. But I had a lady come in and she had a basket full of kittens. And she started off with, I'm an educator and I just need to know what's going to happen. So I laid it out for her and I was just like, this is how things work here. This is what we do. And it was such a breath of fresh air after such a craptastic 6 hours where she was like, thank you so much for being honest. And I'm like, I needed it because this week was long, it was tough, and I ended at 5 o'clock, not so bueno. But it's I feel like we need to get away from the mentality of, one, everybody needs to come together and get on the same page, and two, not to glaze over the truth of what's going on. You know what I mean? And then, but the downside of that too is, and I've been seeing it here a lot lately, and I've been going down the rabbit hole of some of these larger facilities and their Facebook pages, and just the poor staff having to read all this crap. Everybody is wanting us to do everything, but doesn't realize what it takes for us to do everything. And when they're honest about it, then they get angry for being honest about it when they were claiming that they weren't honest about it, 2 weeks ago. You can't have it both ways. And I don't know. Last week was a rough week. I'm ready to get started on a new week. Friday didn't end very well. And I don't know. It's been a tough week. And I don't know where we go from here. I really don't. Everybody wants the honesty. Okay, fine. Well, you get that honesty. Well, then what now?
I have a question for both of you.
Purple.
11.
These bishops, this is chess. This is chess, not checkers, folks. So would morale be different in animal welfare across the board if we were euthanizing more? Hear me out. What I mean by that is if we raised our standards to what we would deem as an adoptable animal, because our standards are pretty low. We just talked about it last week where there was a $7.5 million settlement because they let a dog out with behavioral issues. Just hear me out. Right now, most shelters are operating 95% full, if not higher. I know many people that their shelters are fucking packed and they can't accept new animals. So the question is, if we were euthanizing more to make space and to operate at a level that was what we were staffed for, would staff be as burnt out because they were euthanizing more, or would they feel more relieved because there's more space for animals?
I think, having come from previous to animal welfare in this capacity as humane officer, I worked the shelter aspect of it. And at a shelter that had to euthanize for space. I don't think that it would be better on staff, honestly. I mean, because you're still getting super packed, you have to hold animals for a certain amount of time, and then still having to make those decisions and having it even be healthy animals that are, highly adoptable, but because of space, um, I don't see that. And we had twice, for various reasons. This was, again, I mean, we're talking 20 years ago when it was more acceptable, or I shouldn't say acceptable, but accepted practice that, we had calicivirus. So we literally wiped out our entire cat population. And then it was within less than a year of that, I want to say around 9 months of it, we had such a bad ringworm outbreak. We wiped out our entire population, cats and dogs. And started from scratch and still were full within weeks. So, and I know what kind of toll that took on the staff.
So I'm going to start a new thing, because instead of calling you Texas Bishop, so this is Bishop, and then you're Bishop.
Good Lord.
Howdy.
Howdy, Bishop.
Howdy.
What
We
is-
Aggies.
What is your take? Same view?
Again, coming from the Rio Grande Valley, where I started off, my first step into shelter life was part-time. My first day, like officially part-time, going to the youth room, having to euthanize a mom and 13 puppies. Um,
Yep.
I don't know. I don't know if I have an answer to that, Dan. I really don't. I think because of last week and everything, and just the last couple of weeks, and going down rabbit holes and Facebook pages and things like that, it's what I wish is for people to step in our shoes, to physically step in our shoes, do what we do on a daily basis, and realize that we're not here to enjoy any of this crap. You know what I mean? I didn't sign up to be in a shelter world to be like, yeah, I'm going to be a certified euthanasia technician. Like, let's get this going. Like, it's the absolute worst part of the job. Even if the animal is clearly needing to be humanely euthanized, it still sucks. It
Mm-hmm.
still absolutely sucks.
Yep.
So I don't know, Dan. I don't know what my answer would be. Eh, I just wish people understood what we actually go through, and not just the like, oh well, they are a municipality, or a government owned shelter, it's resources and things like that. Well, yeah, it is, but at the same time, everything that we have to go through on a daily basis, it's not easy. It's not. You don't enjoy some of the hardships that we have to go through, but like I tell everybody that tells me I don't know how you do this, well, I am glad that I'm the one there having to do it. um and there's a lot of tears sometimes in that room, and sometimes you have to euthanize animals that you just don't want to. And it's hard. It's really hard. But no, I don't know what the answer would be. I really don't.
I think part of that answer is getting rid of social media. Because
You're
there,
fine.
but like, look, you said it, Ashlee. Like, you went down a rabbit hole of reading all the comments, and we have the Facebook keyboard warriors out there who sit behind their keyboards not knowing jack shit about anything, about how anything operates, or any of the legalities, or anything of the sort, but they have one hell of an opinion, and when one of them starts, they all start, and it's just a domino effect.
That would have existed though before social media. It would have just been calls to your city manager or county council, city council.
I
It was
don't think it would have been
different.
as bad. I don't think it was
Different.
as
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah, it was different. Well, I guess like at the end of the day, is there division currently in our profession? Yes, that's clear.
Hands down.
I would say, and it's crazy to think that one organization can change that just by messaging. By changing their messaging, that could change a lot of things in our industry. Um, and we can save that for a different episode. However, it's a good segue into Luanne Strickland and this hoarding. So if you didn't listen to episode 225, which was part one, she was a no-kill advocate. She was somebody that truly believed that no animal should be euthanized. And she actually, what she was doing was she was getting animals from other shelters in the Denver metro area, and she was basically getting them off of the euthanasia list. And so she was basically allowing them to live their final life on her farm out there in Strasburg, Colorado, just about 45 minutes east of Denver. And in doing that, I mean, she would adopt some out. That's how some of the complaints would get out and such. But we talk about, are either of you two familiar with the five freedoms?
Mhm.
So are you familiar with the origin, though, of the five freedoms? So the
I am
five
not.
freedoms were created for livestock overseas. That's where it came from.
Hmm.
We've adopted it, no pun intended, in the shelter world, in the domestic pets world, where we apply that five freedoms. And if you look at those five freedoms, there's freedom from hunger and thirst, freedom
Mhm.
from fear and
Fear.
um, I'm
Pain and suffering.
pain and
Mhm.
suffering. There's one that really sticks out to me, and it's freedom to express normal behavior. So the question has come up, and again, this has come up from our listeners with this whole no kill movement, and to relate this to the Luanne Strickland, were those 400 plus animals that were finally removed from her property after she passed away able to express normal behaviors? Are animals that are being warehoused in cages able to express normal behaviors?
No,
No.
absolutely not. Which is
Well,
why, again, I don't
yeah.
put crates on the ground for a reason.
Yeah. And so that's the question, is like, how do we find that balance? And so I doubt anyone from Best Friends is listening without um, without being prompted to. Maybe they are, though. I don't know. But my challenge to them would be, to work alongside of others in this industry to come up with a different slogan as we continue to move forward. As though they're not the inventor of that terminology, they are the biggest voice for it. And so as we, try to work together as a team and get everybody on the same page, we can't have different messages, and we do.
Agreed. And, I've been taking the slogan here recently is all shelters are a reflection of their community.
Mm-hmm.
We can only do as much as the community is going to allow us to do.
Sure.
And that has to be, it can't be just 50%, 60%. And, when people come in and they're upset, and I'm like, well, we can only do as much as our community allows us.
100%. No pun intended there. All right, let's jump into our Luanne Strickland stuff. So we last left you, our listeners, with Luanne Strickland builds $64,000 for care of animals. So again, check out episode 225, part 1 of the Hoarding Reimagined with Luanne Strickland. Bishop?
Is that my cue?
That's your
Is that my cue? Okay.
I'm gonna pass that one to you. Yes, ma'am.
All right. So the title of this article is Levy Against Luanne Strickland Stands, and this was written on September 10th of 1991. Adams County District Judge said yesterday he won't reconsider his August 27th ruling ordering Luanne Strickland to pay more than $64,000 for the care and boarding of hundreds of dogs and cats confiscated from her farm. Judge Harlan Bachman also denied a motion by Strickland's attorney asking that 300 animals remaining in 5 area shelters be returned to Strickland before the bills are resolved. However, Strickland's attorney late yesterday appealed Bachman's ruling to the Colorado Supreme Court, seeking an order that would bar the Colorado Department of Agriculture from retaining custody of the animals. The petition for a writ of prohibition is just to say, stop what's going on now. Freeze it until we can deal with it, Attorney Kay Clements said. However, State Agriculture Department spokesman Jim Miller said that the agency's interpretation of Bachman's latest rulings is that the animals reverted to the department's custody at 5 p.m. yesterday. Unless some new stay is ordered by the Supreme Court, he said the animals can be adopted out by the shelters starting this morning. Clements also plans to file another motion today with the High Court asking it to examine the district court's handling of the Strickland case. Bachman last month ruled that Strickland, the wife of State Senate President Ted Strickland, had neglected 336 dogs and cats seized July 16th from her Strasburg area farm in July. The judge also found that she isn't fit to care for the hundreds of animals. Later, Bachman ruled that because of the volunteers, newly hired help, and improved conditions on the farm, Strickland could get the animals back after she paid for their care. The 5 shelters providing interim care for the animals have submitted bills totaling $64,193.57. Clements challenged the bills. Bachman found them reasonable, and the motion for reconsideration was filed. Yesterday's ruling was in response to the reconsideration motion. Strickland is to appear in county court in Brighton today to answer misdemeanor cruelty to animal charges.
So here we go. It's like these animals are the victims of somebody who thinks they're doing right.
And you know where the proof is that they're not doing right? In the span of 5 weeks, they have racked up a bill of $64,193.57. Now, I'm sure that a lot of that is veterinary bills, but where, I mean,
This makes me feel really old, but 1991, $64,000 is probably like 150 in today's world.
right. And now if you figure that that's about a month, if she was going to actually properly care for all of these animals with the possibility of having the medical needs met, you're looking at $770,000 a year. And you know damn well they weren't making that much to be able to care for them.
That's mind blowing.
Well, and also too, if you think about it, yes, these animals were probably being pulled because, you know, they were going to be killed. Why are you against them being adopted? Like if they're going to get
Right.
adopted,
And
what does
Because
it
that's part of the
matter?
hoarder mentality, though.
yeah,
That's
and we talked about that in part one because of that. There's three different types of hoarders. She's the rescuer version of the hoarder. She's not
and nobody else can be as good to them as she is.
exactly 100%. All right, let's jump
Well, $770,000 worth
in. Wow.
per
It's
year.
insane.
Bishop, you want this one?
Sure. Luanne Strickland files appeal to block shelter animal adoptions. Some dogs, cats, some of dogs,
I'm
cats.
giving you both bishops got me today.
That's just written weird.
Uh-huh.
Already going outdoors to new homes. September 12th, 1991, from the Denver Post. Luanne Strickland yesterday appealed to the Colorado Court of Appeals to block a district court ruling that allowed 5 animal shelters to begin adopting out 300 dogs and cats seized from Strickland's farm in July. It wasn't known immediately if the filing of appeal means the animals no longer can be released for adoption. However, the shelters had received no notification from the court by late yesterday, and some of the pets were going out the doors. Good for them. Bob Rohde of the Denver Dumb Friends League also confirmed late yesterday that his facility has received no court orders prohibiting adoptions, and one or more of the animals had been adopted. Jack Clancy of the Adams County Animal Control Center had said earlier in the day that 21 of the 24 Strickland cats at his shelter may be euthanized as early as tomorrow because they are suffering from feline diseases. Adams County District Judge Harlan Bachman ruled August 19th that the animals seized July 16th had been neglected, and Strickland, wife of State Senate President Ted Strickland, isn't fit to care for them. But because of improvements at the farm and added help, the judge also ruled the animals could be returned to Luanne Strickland if she paid the $64,193.57 for their care at the shelters. Bachman ruled Tuesday the animals belong to the Colorado Agricultural Department because the deadline wasn't met for paying the shelter bills. The department immediately authorized the shelters to find new homes for the animals. Kay Clements, Luanne Strickland's attorney, filed an appeal to the ruling with the state appeals court yesterday. Jim Benway, clerk of appeals court, said it will take 174 days, if there are no delays, to file transcripts, briefs, and motions that compile the record of the case. The appeal then will be reviewed by the appellate judges. Another 174 days?
174 days that these animals now have to sit at other animal shelters while they wait a ruling to see if they can adopt out animals that she doesn't need back. What does she need them for? What does she need them for?
Nothing.
And
So hold on, let's do the math here. Okay.
analytics. Okay, you do the math.
All right. Divided by, it was, when was the ruling? August 19th.
Yes.
Okay. So 19.
As she's doing that, because We're going to
Yes.
keep it moving while you do your math behind the scenes. I'll take this article. Adams County Luanne Strickland loses
Of
attempt to
course.
recover pets. Luanne Strickland's last-ditch attempt to get hundreds of cats and dogs was dealt a setback when a federal judge denied her motion for a temporary restraining order. Strickland has appeals pending in the state and federal courts challenging the constitutionality of the state protecting abused or neglected animals. U.S. District Judge Daniel Spar on Tuesday denied her motion for a restraining order to stop local animal shelters from euthanizing or putting up for adoption the dogs and cats seized from her in July. That was in September 1991, September 19th, 1991.
Yeah, a few days later.
Yeah.
Well, at least one judge realizes that you're dealing with live beings.
That we can't sit there and wait 174 days before a ruling is made. But it's, again, where was the conversations of like, hey, Luanne, these animals are not getting euthanized. Well, some of them were, but the ones are getting rehomed. Like, that's the purpose here.
Well, and okay, so if we do this the right way, that is $1,888 a day at 174 days is $328,517
For care.
for care that none of those shelters are ever going to see.
Ever.
So now either the municipality pays that, and now you're taking out of taxpayers and holding on to animals that could be in homes and not getting a chance to have their 5 freedoms while in a shelter for 174 days. That is 6 months almost.
It's unnecessary.
Absolutely unnecessary. But I don't know if you guys know this, but clearly Luanne is the only one that is able to care for them. She
And
can
that's
do
the
it the
problem.
best.
Yeah, that's the problem with these hoarders.
Yeah.
All right, March 20th, 1992, Rocky Mountain News, Denver, Colorado. Pet lover pleads guilty to neglect, but Luanne Strickland won't serve jail time after state sees cats, dogs on Strasburg farm. Luanne Strickland, whose Adams County farm was the site of a raid last year in which 300 dogs and cats were seized, pleaded guilty Thursday to one count of allowing dogs to run at large, and one count of neglect to animals. She received 2 suspended jail sentences and a $645 fine. In exchange for her pleas, the Adams County District Court's office dropped 2 counts of allowing dogs to run at large and 2 counts of cruelty to animals. Strickland is married to Colorado State Senate President Ted Strickland. Chief Deputy District Attorney Bob Grant said the plea agreement covered 2 cases. The first involved Strickland's dogs, which were accused of damaging some chickens and peacocks belonging to a neighbor near her Strasburg farm last June. The second case stemmed from a raid of the Strickland farm in July. Agents from the Colorado Department of Ag and Adams County Sheriff's deputies seized more than 300 dogs and cats alleged to have been sick or dying. In the first case, Grant said Strickland received a suspended 90-day sentence. She must pay $645 in restitution for the peacocks within 30 days and pay $81 in court costs. In the second case, Strickland got a 1-year deferred sentence, which the charge will be dismissed if there are no further violations between now and March 19 of 1993. Strickland must pay for intervention services, a private probation service, and pay for monthly inspections of her farm by veterinarian Dr. Jeffrey Young. He has a show on A&E, folks. Dr. Jeff Young. He's still around. Kay Clements, Strickland's attorney, said her client agreed to the plea bargain because a trial would be emotionally and financially draining. She doesn't admit guilt by the pleas, Clements said. Luanne doesn't believe she is guilty of anything but a violation of the leash law. Clements said the deferred sentence is tantamount to the dismissal of the neglect charge. She is 60 years old and doesn't plan to have any violations. Just wait on that, people. Clement said Young already makes regular visits to the Strickland farm, and he was their choice to make the court-ordered inspections. We consider this a complete exoneration, and exoneration is the key word. Whew. So out of 300 animals seized for neglect and cruelty, etc., she got one count. How much influence does the state Senate president have on that?
It should be 0.
I wonder if Dr. Jeff Young will come on and talk about Luanne's case if he remembers it at all.
If he remembers it. I would think that this is a case he'd probably remember.
I have to find the number, but I actually have a good contact that we might be able to pull that. So well, I'm going to work on that. I didn't know he was involved until now.
That could be pretty cool.
That would be cool. I agree. I'm mind boggled. Like, this is just insanity. It's just absolute insanity. And we all know, all three of us have been, me probably the newest at it all, but you know why people don't want to go to court.
Yeah.
You know why people don't want to go to court, especially with cases like this.
But they're guilty?
Pretty
Yes.
much. They don't want to lay it out on the line. It just it's just infuriating. And at the end of the day, the only thing that happened in all of this is the animal suffered. And they got no justice whatsoever for the animals that were found deceased, that had to be euthanized. Just no justice. It's disgusting.
Disgusting.
Move on.
Move on.
Moving on up. Luanne Strickland accepts the plea bargain, March 20th, 1992, from the Denver Post. Luanne Strickland yesterday pleaded guilty to 1 count of cruelty to animals and was given a 1-year deferred judgment. But Strickland, who originally was charged with 3 counts of animal cruelty, won't pay fines and can continue to operate her animal shelter under terms of a plea bargain. The charges stemmed from a raid on Strickland's farm near Strasburg last summer that cost $64,000 in follow-up care at public shelters. The wife of State Senate President Ted Strickland also pleaded guilty yesterday to 1 count of dog at large after 1 or more of the dogs from her farm allegedly attacked and killed several of the neighbors' peacocks months before the July 16th raid. Wait, now he's the one getting pled guilty for that?
Yeah.
Okay. Adams County Sheriff deputies and Colorado Department of Agricultural officers confiscated more than 300 dogs and cats from her property in that raid. Clay Clements, Luanne Strickland's attorney, said the plea bargain was being accepted in effort to avoid the financial and emotional cost of 2 separate trials. One that was scheduled earlier this month on the dog at large charge, and a second trial scheduled for April 1st on the cruelty to animal charges. Ha! Anybody else notice it's on April Fool's Day? Because it was a joke.
Wow.
Sorry. The reason we went this route was because emotionally I couldn't go through it twice, a choked up Strickland told the court. County Court Judge Sabino Romano informed Strickland that the condition of the deferred judgment is that she has no more cruelty to animal charges or any other significant problems with the law for the next year. She also is to continue working with Dr. Jeff Young, a veterinarian, to prevent the problems of the past from reoccurring, the judge said. If Strickland violates the conditions of the deferred judgment, she faces up to 1 year in jail and up to $5,000 in fines. If she abides by the judgment, the guilty plea will be expunged from her record. For the guilty plea on the dog at large charge, Romano gave Strickland a 90-day jail sentence and then suspended it. The judge also ordered her to pay court costs and restitution of $645 to the neighbor for the peacocks. Strickland agreed to pay the restitution, but complained to the judge that the value of the peacocks is tremendously inflated. She also said that while some of her hundreds of dogs were running free, there is no proof that they killed the birds.
That sentence right there, I'm sorry, I could have not. Some of
Yeah.
my hundreds.
Yeah.
Wow.
Good grief. Following the brief court hearing, Strickland and Clemens said they consider the plea bargain a victory, and Strickland continued to deny that she was ever cruel to any of the dogs and cats on her farm last summer. She also said she now has volunteers and paid help, and things are running smoothly at the shelter. Strickland said she isn't sure how many dogs and cats are there now. Jesus Christ. Oh, but there are not as many as before the raid. According to the agricultural officials, many of the 336 dogs and cats taken from the farm were sick and eventually were euthanized.
Does anybody find it precarious that there is no mention of how many animals were actually euthanized in any of these articles?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think we just didn't have the records, or they just didn't want to sensationalize that?
I don't know. I just
I
find
feel
it
like
odd.
I think they would have wanted to sensationalize it,
I agree.
unless they didn't want to bring the shelters down, because it would have been no kill. Why are we euthanizing these animals? And then you
Not,
would have had people
not
on
in
the
the
side of
90s.
Luanne.
In the 90s, though, I think it would have been a little bit different. Euthanasia was a lot more accepted back then.
To be fair, I didn't get into the field of work until the 2000s because, I was too young.
Yeah, I mean, I think all of us on this podcast can probably relate to that.
Uh-huh. I'm sure we all can, Dan.
I mean, in 91, I was still in high school, so
I
I
was
think
not.
I was
like,
3.
there's no way
I,
you're old.
I was
Older.
1.
Okay, I was about to say, there's no way anybody is older than me.
I was 1 years old.
Wow. So you reading this is like a snapshot into historical events.
Pretty much.
As we go on to the last article, so just so people understand too, with this case, this hoarding case in Luanne Strickland, this was all I was able to find through public library and things like that. There was nothing available on record. And I remember seeing videos, news articles, all this was scrubbed
Mandela effect.
or that. But as we move forward into the net, when we get to the part two or part three, excuse me, we were able to get records from the Department of Ag as recent as 2000, was it 2013?
Yes.
As recent as 2013. And then it was kind of hush. And then once she passed away in 2018, is when they removed more animals from the property. It's possible her attorney wiped everything from the internet at that point. But so you'll want to stay tuned for that. But we got to get to this last article here is pretty damning too. Just the title alone is pretty significant. Bishop, you want to take that one?
Yeah, and this is also quite a bit later.
Yeah.
Campaign money went to cat shelter, September 18th, 1995, the Denver
four.
Post.
Or 3, depending on what month you're born.
Former Colorado Senate President Ted Strickland gave $10,000 left over from his unsuccessful 1992 re-election campaign to his wife's cat shelter, state records show. Friend of Felines, the Strasburg Animal Refuge run by Luanne Strickland, received the money in 2 installments at the beginning and the end of 1993. The previous year, Luanne Strickland pleaded guilty to 1 count of cruelty to animals after a raid on her property by Colorado and Adams County authorities. Her shelter is not incorporated as a nonprofit organization, nor is it recognized as a charity by the IRS. But Ted Strickland defended the donations as allowable under the state campaign finance laws. We checked the law very carefully, said the 2-time Republican nominee for governor and current chairman of the Adams County GOP. It says that any balance of funds can be extended on any other nonprofit organization, ... It's just like, brackets, the money went to the YMCA or the Denver Rescue Mission or anything else. Strickland, who lives in Westminster, served in the state legislature 26 years before Democrat Lloyd Casey defeated him in November of 1992. The 2 $5,000 donations to Friend of Felines were made from a $32,521 campaign surplus reported after the election. Colorado election law prohibits state candidates from pocketing leftover campaign money. Surplus funds may be given to any nonprofit or charitable organization whose purposes are not political in nature. The law doesn't specify whether the organization must be registered with the state or IRS. What?
How is it a nonprofit then?
Exactly. Rick Bainter, Colorado director of the Common Cause campaign watchdog group, said he believes Strickland violated the law's intent because a friend's feline is not a legitimate charity. I don't want to pass judgment on his wife's cat shelter, Banter said, but if she hasn't taken the time to set it up as an official charitable organization, then I don't think it passes muster under the law. I agree. If someone's going to interpret the words charitable organization to mean anything that you want to give the money to, then there is no law. The law's meaningless, he added. Either charitable organization means a bona fide organization that's recognized by the IRS as being a tax-deductible organization, or it has no meaning at all. Neither Secretary of State Vicki Buckley nor her lawyer in the state attorney general's office could be reached for comment on Strickland's donations. People who contributed to his re-election campaign had mixed reactions to learning that their cash may have gone to an entirely different cause. It probably wasn't the best use of the funds. The Denver resident Mark Cooper, who contributed $200 to re-electing Strickland. If he was going to donate to charity, there are probably better things to donate than to a cat shelter.
Ooh, I don't like that guy.
But a Denver contributor who requested anonymity said it doesn't bother him to know that his $50 might have gone to a cat shelter. In fact, he added, it might be a better use now that I think about it. Lafayette resident Stephen Bosley, who also gave $50, said Strickland told him that the campaign money would be contributed to friend of felines. I had no problem with it, he said. Strickland said his wife used the $10,000 for operating expenses at the animal refuge. He said that the shelter is still there and going and hasn't had any problems with animal control authorities since he left office. More than 300 cats and dogs, many of them sick, were confiscated during a raid on Luanne Strickland's farm in 1991. Several had to be euthanized, and many were taken to public animal shelters, costing $64,000 in follow-up care. Ms. Strickland originally was charged with 3 counts of animal cruelty, but the charges were reduced under the term of a plea bargain, and she was allowed to continue operating her shelter. She also pleaded guilty to 1 count of dog at large because one or more of the dogs from her farm attacked and killed several of the neighbors' peacocks months before the raid.
What a mess. What a mess.
It goes to show that the challenges of that we are facing in trying to get laws upheld and getting people to take animal cruelty seriously.
Yeah. 100%. And we're always going to have people that are in support and people that are in opposition of these matters. And again, I think the reason that we do this job is because we want to continue to help animals and help people and really contribute to the overall wellness of the community. But it's hard to do when you have people that are completely delusional.
Yeah. I mean, what makes me angry about this article too is like, even now, when my programs coordinator took over, I told her, I was like, if the organization is not willing to go through the hoops to become a nonprofit, then it's a big no for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a huge no for me.
Yeah. I absolutely. I want to get into some of this supporters, critics debate the saga of Luanne Strickland. This is from July 31st of 91. And it's messy. And so I'm going to read a few of these. This first one is about a dog. Let's see here. All right. So I don't know how many other dogs had this privilege. I used to live in her neighborhood in Westminster. In 1983, she gave Bojo, Spats, and Patsy, all neutered and spayed at her expense, to me, my kids. I believe All had been abused or abandoned. I didn't ask her for those dogs. She just gave them to us. Bojo died, but I still have Spats and Patsy. Like many abandoned dogs, Spats is a mixed, big to medium size, black, not so cute, good looking. Sorry, not so cute, good for nothing kind of dog. If she had been placed in one of the regular shelters, most likely she would have been last to be adopted in it and would have been killed a long time ago. But I consider her a good dog, and I'm enjoying her and Patsy as members of my family. Luann gave those dogs chances to live happily and us to be happy with. And I thank God
Sorry.
for her in sickness, agony, and danger. I don't. Okay. But this is a time to help Luann and those pets. I know she can't care for all those animals alone. She needs to help in every way: cleaning, feeding, exercising, adopting, funding, volunteering, etc. If you can't do those things, at least take responsibility for your own pets. Make sure they are neutered, spayed, and not running loose, abused, or abandoned. So that's one. And I don't know if we want to go through all these because there's a lot. But I do want to read a few more. The actions Luanne Strickland has taken in regard to her animals in care have been a labor of love, undertaking without regard to personal and financial cost. She is a woman of rare conviction who is not afraid to walk her talk. I hope and pray that when all is said and done, and the truth and beauty of her work will come out to the public's attention. In the meantime, though she may not remember me, I shall never forget her caring and kindness, and I always be proud to stand by her. The world would be a colder place for our furrier or for our friends without her. All right, let's go to this one. Bravo to the Denver Post. Sometimes I have disagreed with your editorial positions, but today you deserve a medal. On the Farm with Luann, an excellent piece of honest but compassionate writing. It has us nodding in agreement and shouting bravo. We've all followed the story of Luann in sadness and anger, sadness for the plight of helpless animals, and because the woman obviously needs treatment for obsession, and anger that a county administration is so cowed by the Strickland political power that it overlooks the law, not only now, but several times in the past. Shame, shame, Adams County. I'll read this last one. The pet overpopulation is not an insurmountable problem. It could have been solved years ago. Had those animal protection done their job to control the breeding of cats and dogs, the shelters would not be overloaded. You don't wait for irresponsible breeders and pet owners to someday clean up their act, and meanwhile, you kill animals in the same name of mercy and call it animal protection. This kind of thinking has done much harm to animals and its society. For a starter, we must call for a moratorium on breeding of all dogs and cats so we can make our animal regulations humane. The killer syndrome has to go. Also, the shelter community must take responsibility for adopted animals that are old enough to be spayed or neutered. The suffering of dogs and cats and all of our pet-related problems are due to pet overpopulation and bad laws. Man, I've been saying that forever.
That one hurt my brain.
Why?
Because they wanted to blame the shelters and in the same breath want the laws to change.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that one hurt.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot. But hearing this stuff in 1991, we're literally in the same place 20, 30, how many years ago now is that?
I
35
don't
years,
want to talk about it.
33 years ago? We're like, it's almost the same exact thing. Like we're literally in the same place.
It's interesting though, too, like that last one that you read. When was the transition from people not taking responsibility for their actions and their pets? Like, I feel like it has been a thing, and it's just like, how are the shelters at fault for any of this? We are here, we have a job for a reason. Like, why can't anybody understand that people need to take care of their pets? Companion animal welfare is, and health in general is a thing. And just, I don't understand why people don't put the issue in the hands of the pet owner. It's always animal control, it's always the animal shelter, it's never the pet parent, ever.
Never.
It's been going on for decades or longer than that, centuries. As we go back to the 1800s, like they were just outside all day. Like people wouldn't care for them. And we're still like, we're only 2 generations from that, 3 generations from that. And so, I mean, it's just presents in different ways. And it's something you said, Bishop, early on, is like it's access to care. We need to be able to provide the resources available for people and their pets to ensure that this is getting done. And unfortunately, it's we're literally still, there's Luanne Stricklands all over this country.
Yep. And there's still Kay Clements out there fighting for them
Yeah.
because the laws are not taken seriously.
They are not. All right. Before we wrap this up, Kay Clements wrote a letter.
Oh my God, did you read that?
We're going to read a little bit of it now. This is what we call tease people. Dear
Oh,
Mr. Lucero, I am the attorney. I can try my words again. Dear Mr. Lucero, I am the attorney for Luanne Strickland, and I have something to say about the outrageous manner in which both Miss Strickland and I have been treated over the last 2 weeks. This is also from 2000, I think 13, by the way.
yes.
It is.
The treatment of me has paled in comparison to the inexcusable abuse sustained by Mrs. Strickland. I will address the treatment of me only briefly, however. I have been insulted, threatened with arrest, have several members of the sheriff's department reach for their gun when I was simply reaching into my pocket for a pen or started to zip up my coat. This happened repeatedly. I have been physically grabbed and pushed. Ever since the raid, I have been threatened and insulted by adult services, by the caseworker who made ridiculous statements and hung up on me when I have refused to disclose my hour rate for legal services. We're going to end it there. So just so people understand, this hoarding never stopped, and it came back up again in 2013. And even before that, as I mentioned in the first episode, I was not allowed to go by that property. When I worked in that county, we were told we couldn't go by there.
Which is insane to me.
Have any of you Googled it just to see it on Google Maps? I might
No.
actually, I'm in Denver next week. I might drive by it if I have time, just to see if it's still as disheveled as it was on the Google Earth images.
Yeah, you should definitely take some photos. But so yeah, we literally went from her being 60 years old to this letter coming from her attorney when she's 81.
81.
Because she got caught again.
Yep.
So for the 20 years after that, there was, I would imagine, if you know anything about Denver, most people that never visited there, the summer gets ridiculously hot, especially in the Eastern Plains where she was at. We're talking 100-degree days. And then you get the cold winter. Like, I would imagine animals were dying probably daily on her property, probably daily.
Do you imagine the excavation equipment needed? If they even looked that far?
Yeah, good point. Good point. Well, that's all we have for today. That was a long episode. It's just part 2 of this series. We'll see if we can get it done in 3 parts. It might be 4 parts. We'll see. I did get a good contact number for Dr. Jeff Young while we were on the phone. So we'll be reaching out to him. And I know he's a busy guy, but we have a good connection there. So we'll see if we can make that happen. I'm pretty excited about it.
That would be cool.
Yeah. And not just to talk about this, though. They do some great stuff at Planned Pethood International.
Yeah, they do.
They provide a lot of low cost, no cost services for people. So that access to care that we talked about. So I'm sure if we can get them on to talk about that, that'd be great. All right. Well, y'all enjoy your rest of your day. Remember to check out the website, keepithumane.com. Go to our socials. Oh, we also started a TikTok.
Good Lord.
No, not TikTok. Twitter, X. Is it X? X. There's Keep It Humane on X too. So follow that as well. You both.
I refuse.
You're not on X. You're just not doing it.
No. Even when it was Twitter, I didn't have an account.
It's fine. You don't have to.
You can't make me.
I won't make you. But what I can make you do is thanks for listening and
Help people.
help animals. Be humane.